Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Jason DeLucia to defeat Royce Gracie. And I'm here to talk about Gabe Green versus Bryan Battle. This is the second fight of the night. Gabe Green is 30 years old, 11-4 as a pro, and he's given up 3 inches of height and 4 inches of reach to Bryan Battle, who's 28 years old and 8-2 as a pro. Both these guys are gritty sons of bitches. In general, I expect them to win most of their fights by being the last man standing, outlasting and outworking their opponents. And they do so in different ways. Gabe Green is much more conventional. He's in your face, trying to wear you down by putting you on the back foot and having pressure, break you pretty much. Bryan Battle, he's historically been a guy. I mean, he's historically fought his whole career at middleweight, aside from his last 2 fights. But even at middleweight, he used his size when he could use his size. He doesn't have athleticism on his side in pretty much any battle, but he's got some really nice craft inside the clinch and on the ground, especially if he's able to suck you into his fight, which he's done to some really good fighters at middleweight. He wears you down and tames you, puts you away. That's how he got his biggest victory against Andre Petroski, who is surging right now as a middleweight. That fight is not on his record because it's an exhibition fight on The Ultimate Fighter, but he won that fight in the same way he won The Ultimate Fighter against Gilbert Urbina, taming the better wrestler and the more aggressive fighter and the better athlete and choking him out in round 2. Petroski has since then turned into a better 15-minute fighter. I trust his cardio more than I did then, but it took a guy like Bryan Battle to exploit that. You have to have that ground game to survive in the first place with Petroski, and then wear him down and then put him away. And Bryan Battle had all that. And he got another big victory against Tresean Gore to solidify his championship, because that was the fight he should have had on The Ultimate Fighter. And then since then, he dropped to welterweight, where he had a big knockout win over Takashi Sato, emphatic debut. And then he lost his last one to Rinat Fakhretdinov, a fight in which he was dominated. I don't know if he was smothered or mauled, somewhere in between, but he was dominated and dropped. But still, that's not a path to victory for Gabe Green. Duplicating that Rinat Fakhretdinov performance, no, that's not it. I do have concerns. Bryan Battle, I should get into it, his 8-2 record. His 2 losses, one comes by submission, one comes by decision to Fakhretdinov. The submission comes 3 years ago or so, 4 years ago. Not long ago, really. And it was to this guy whose name I don't recognize. He's, largely considered a can or something, dog shit record, not a lot of experience or fights or high-level competition, but he armbarred Bryan Battle in round 1. Now, since then, I've only seen Bryan Battle win the submission battle, and he's done so over really good fighters, but I still have doubts. Getting armbarred in round 1, maybe it just means he's one of these guys who, despite his submission prowess, he's susceptible to getting submitted. Maybe it doesn't. What the fuck do I know? But either way, it happened. Also, he was knocked out. As an amateur, he was knocked out. The fight's on YouTube. It was his debut, even though it was still not that long ago, maybe 6 years ago or so. But he was knocked dead with a head kick. This guy kicked him in the head, and, big, monstrous heavyweight kicked him in the head. But still, a head kick was enough, and it sent him flying off the earth. He made his way back and resumed his career, but it was a big knockout. So there are some doubts I have about Bryan Battle. I do not think he's the most refined fighter anywhere, but I definitely think he's not exactly raw either. Raw fighters don't tame guys like Andre Petroski. So Bryan Battle, even though he's not the most technical and refined fighter, he's definitely a good fighter, and he belongs in the UFC. I mean, winning the fucking Ultimate Fighter should solidify that. I should mention, speaking of head kicks, that big Takashi Sato knockout, that's just a beautiful knockout. It only takes a few seconds, so anytime I have to watch or research Bryan Battle, I always go back and rewatch that. Just a beautiful fucking knockout. And I have some doubts about Bryan Battle, but I really like him. I like his traits as a fighter. I think if his chin holds up and if, he's not being dominated by somebody that's got great wrestling and great cardio and just will be able to rip him to the mat like Rinat Fakhretdinov, I think Bryan Battle is very much in any fight. You know, he's already tamed enough guys where he's won me over. Gabe Green, he's got 11-4 record, 2 knockout losses, 2 decision losses. The decisions are against D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, and against Ian Gary, both in the UFC. And I'm really impressed with the fact that he went the distance with both those guys. Because coming into the UFC, I really had doubts about him. Again, he only had 2 losses at that point, and they were both by knockout. But they are by knockout. He was knocked unconscious. The most recent loss, even though it was 6 years ago, the most recent finish loss, I should say, comes to Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner knocked him out in like 20 seconds, hit him with a big uppercut, and then put him out with ground and pound. And there's no shame in that because Jalen Turner's kicking ass and taking names. His loss right before that came to this guy, Randy Abafo, this Hawaiian fighter. And the guy just hit him with a beautiful body shot, which I think stunned him, kind of, took him out of the fight there. And then he teed off on him, got him against the cage, put him in the clinch, big knees, big uppercuts, and then knocked him dead with an elbow, I think. I don't know. But, regardless of what knocked him out, he was knocked unconscious in that fight. So my point is, I have doubts about Gabe Green's chin. Even though he held strong against Ian Gary and Daniel Rodriguez, he's been knocked out twice, and he was also almost knocked out by Johan Lainez. Johan Lainez is a heavy-handed guy, and he did have Gabe Green hurt. It's points against his chin. But in that fight, Gabe Green survived and then took him out a minute or 2 later in the same fucking round. Just a phenomenal performance from Gabe Green. And even though his chin's stock went down, his stock as a fighter went way high from that fight. I really like what I've seen from Gabe Green. That Johan Lainez is definitely his biggest victory, but he also beat Philip Rowe, who's, I think, doing well now. I don't know when the fuck he's fighting. I don't think he's fought since Nico Price. But he beat Philip Rowe, I thought, pretty cleanly. It was a close fight, but I thought he was, you could argue he won rounds 2 and 3. I think somebody gave it a 30-27. But yeah, he won rounds 2 and 3 in my opinion. He was having a lot of trouble with the takedowns there, though. Even when he was on top of Philip Rowe, he was swept, let the jiu-jitsu guy get an underhook. But again, Philip Rowe is a very good jiu-jitsu guy. Still, though, Gabe Green, his strength as a fighter is pressure. He's a pressure fighter. He's much better with the boxing, in my opinion. He does have 6 submission victories, I should mention, in his 11 wins. So he's definitely got some submission chops. But those are against shittier competition. I don't think that's going to be there for him in this fight. I think in this fight, it's, he's going to be standing and looking to be standing. And when he's standing, he's really good as a pressure fighter. Just an incredible pressure fighter. Great hands, good output. And in the UFC anyway, he's pretty damn tough. But he's ran into some trouble before. He's been taken down in just about every fight. And he was taken down repeatedly by Philip Rowe. But against Johan Lainez and Daniel Rodriguez, in both those fights, he got a kick caught and was taken down with a kick. So I think he's definitely vulnerable in that realm, in the wrestling realm. And that's where Bryan Battle is going to be looking to put him. And I think it's going to take little things like that, catching kicks or sucking him into the clinch against the cage. I don't think Bryan Battle's going to be hitting double legs in the center of the octagon. But I expect Bryan Battle to be trying to get Gabe Green to the ground, just because that's where Bryan Battle does his best work, sucking the life out of his opponents, putting his big frame on top of them. On the feet, I'd say I slightly favor Gabe Green. Assuming both their chins hold up, I think Gabe Green, at the very least, he's got pressure on his side. It's like having 200 points on the SATs for putting your name down, which I think is horseshit. I think that's a myth. But that's what you get. Like, you get 200 points right away just for being the guy that's going to be leading the dance. And in a fight that goes to a decision, that's something. Having said that, you know what else is something? Being from Charlotte in a fight taking place in Charlotte. And that's where Bryan Battle's from. So in a fight that I expect to be close, on the feet anyway, I'm picking Bryan Battle to win. And not because of the hometown horseshit. I think that's an X factor. I felt like mentioning it. But I think he's going to win largely with takedowns. Not all takedowns, but that'll be the difference maker. I expect Bryan Battle to score more points against Gabe Green, catching kicks, little things like that it'll take. But I know he's a guy that wants to be on top. And certainly doesn't want to be on bottom after the Rinat Fakhretdinov fight. So here I am picking Bryan Battle. I bet on him plus 110 to win this fight. I've also sprinkled a little bit on his decision line because I think that's his most likely path to victory, even though, again, he's a guy that wants to wear you down and submit you in round 2 or 3. But Gabe Green's never been submitted, and he's a damn scrappy fighter. And I don't think Bryan Battle's going to knock him dead unless it's the perfect head kick, like he caught against Takashi Sato. I think Bryan Battle, he's not a conventional power